All right. Thank you for your patience. We're going to start off with a roll call. I see Councilmember Joan Cathey is here today, and I am here as well. Councilmember Weedon and Councilmember Swarthout is excused. So we can jump into agenda item number 3. And if Brad is on, he can go ahead and take that away.
All right, let me go ahead and share screen here just a sec. Right. Can everybody see the presentation screen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The first ordinance we'll have discussion of today will be the building demolition ordinance. We will go through a very short presentation for that. Excuse me as I try to get the thing to change. Here we go. Little background on this particular ordinance. The intent of the ordinance is to amend Chapter 1550 of the Municipal Code to address building demolition requirements for the removal of foundations. The issue is they're not currently called out as something that has to be addressed as part of building demolition, and that we have had issues with foundations being left after demolitions, and then there's some code enforcement issues that follow from that. The GGC is going to be briefed on the Planning Commission's recommendation, and then ultimately the GGC will be asked to place the ordinance on the July 21st City Council consideration calendar with a recommendation to adopt. The amendments, again, are really just to add language to the current demolition chapter that addresses foundations. So, for example, in the definition section, we're adding including foundations to the definition of demolition. We're adding a definition of foundation, which is defined in the International Building Code as being the structural element that transfers the weight of the building to the underlying earth. And then we're adding a sentence to the definition of valuation to address the cases where demolition can leave the foundations behind if the foundations are in turn going to be used for a future building. Additional additions that are going to be added, we're adding a new section to the chapter dealing with foundation removal, essentially requiring that when the structure is demolished that all foundations be removed, and then give the building official the discretion to determine what things can potentially remain. For example, if a project had put pilings in that don't interfere with the future use of the land, it doesn't make sense to try to dig the pilings out. That kind of thing. So there's a little bit of discretion for the building official to make that determination. Additional amendments involve the application requirements on the site plan. They'll just need to include the foundations and also how the site will be addressed after demolitions, including removing foundations, final grading, and erosion control, included in the written work schedule. So all of those items would be added to as requirements in the code. Next steps, the SEPA environmental review was completed back in June. Determination was issued. There were no comments received. The notice of intent process with the Department of Commerce ended on the 11th of this month. No comments were received back from that. And so if the GGC is supportive, we'll put this on consideration for your meeting next week. Are there any questions?
Hi, Brad. I haven't seen you. I haven't been able to ask you crazy questions for months now. I just wondered, is this leaving the foundations and all of that, this is all then up to the discretion of the builder or the person who's going to develop that land and that kind of thing?
Well, currently we don't have a way in the code to require the removal of foundations. In some cases, if the owner is, say, developing their new project, they'll want to make that change. But in some cases, we've had a property owner remove a building, but then for a variety of reasons, financing, other things don't move forward. So this is intended to address those kinds of situations.
I personally don't have any other questions about it.
I do not either. I appreciate the presentation, Brad. With no further questions, I guess I will take a motion to move ordinance number 026-008 building demolition onto the July 15th consent calendar.
I second that.
Seeing all those in
Chair,
favor, vote aye.
Chair, a very quick correction. I think it's to the July 21st consideration.
Oh, yeah.
That is
Consent-
correct.
Consent is okay too.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Are we okay?
Okay. Do we need to redo that or we're good to move on, Karen?
Could you please clarify that it's the July 21st and then whether you prefer considerations or consent?
Okay. So can we move can I get a motion to move this number 0202-004 onto the July 21st, 2026 City Council consideration calendar with a recommendation to adopt?
Is that the part of the, I'm not reading the thing, that they want it on consideration or on consent?
They want it on consideration. Oh, sorry, I was reading the wrong one. Consent. You are correct, Joan.
Okay.
Are you good with the motion?
Yeah. I'm good with, yes.
All right.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Seeing all those in favor of it, it passes. And then we will move on to agenda item number 4, ordinance number 02026, presentation by Alyssa. If you're ready, Alyssa, go ahead.
I am. Good morning, General Government Committee.
Good morning.
Morning. I believe this is actually my second time before General Government, previously with the climate element. So hello, I'm new to this committee. I will be presenting on the home energy score ordinance once more. We've had a couple hours of discussion about this topic at least 2 city council work sessions. So this is a little bit of an update on where things have moved since we last spoke and hopefully in action. So since my last presentation, I heard the feedback from City Council that perhaps the original conception of 80% area median income being the income threshold for the subsidy was not sufficient. So I have amended the language in the ordinance before you today. By all means, you still have the ability to suggest otherwise, but it is coming to you today written that it's 150% area median income as the top income cap for being able to be recipients of the subsidy. And I have information here on the screen about what the Housing and Urban Development area median income for Tumwater is. 100% is $122,880. 80% is about $98,000, and 150 is $184,320. We can have discussion on if 150 is good, if it's too high, but I wanted to have the language so that that was the upper cap, and we can figure out a way to do tiered subsidies beyond that, but that would be the upper cap. I have information in the packet about differences between Olympia, Thurston County, and our draft ordinance for this, because this is one area where it's different. That is in the packet between pages 25 and 27. Nothing different that would substantially change the way that the program works regionally, should Tumwater adopt this. Just some small bits that you all had requested at the last work session about mostly going forward with the regional model with some tweaks for some Tumwater specific content.
So let's verify this is an true.
I was asked to make sure that I clarified the difference between a home inspection and a home energy score audit. This is a common misconception that they are functionally the same, in which they are not. A standard home inspection seeks to answer the question of what's wrong with this house. It looks into structural and mechanical defects, helps buyers avoid costly surprises. It's primarily a visual, non-invasive inspection. They can note energy-related issues, but doesn't necessarily measure them. And the report identifies defects, safety issues, and maintenance concerns. Also, a standard home inspection cannot be used to secure an Energy Spark home loan from the Washington Housing Corporation. Home energy score audit answers the primary question of how energy efficient is this house. It measures how the home consumes and loses energy, helps buyers evaluate long-term operating costs, and provides a report with the ranked list of energy savings improvements, projected savings, and energy efficiency score. Both standards, both the home inspection and a home energy score audit, have standards that are set for home inspections. These are set forward in Chapter 308, 408C in the WAC. Standards of practice for home inspection, and for home energy score, these standards are determined by the U.S. Department of Energy. They both have things that are required and things that are not required, which I will go into a specific example of one aspect that you could see in both and how they differ. One example of how these compare is the way that insulation is approached. I'm using this as an example because the EPA estimates that proper insulation and air sealing can cut heating and cooling costs by an average of 15%, and it's one of the least costly options to improve home efficiency. A home inspection, per our WAC, is required to identify the insulation type and document coverage voids. For instance, my home inspection in Tumwater noted that I had insulation in most of my house, but that it was lacking above my garage. That's the information I have on my insulation in my home in Tumwater from the home inspection. A home energy score audit will identify the insulation type, measure the depth, report the R value, which is the thermal resistance, grade the insulation quality, and also document voids. For a home energy score audit, this data is entered into a diagnostic and modeling tool that the assessor uses with more than 50 other aspects of home efficiency to get to that score and those suggestions. Some home inspectors may go above and beyond the requirement, and they might very well add information about the R value, but that is not the base requirement that all home inspections must meet. So we could have very, very good actors and others that are meeting the minimum standards. And we have both in our community for sure. Work is well underway regionally to establish a supporting program for a more widespread use of the home energy score tool. Thurston County has released a request for qualifications for a national service provider that would serve the county and potentially the city should we choose to adopt the ordinance to meet the quality assurance requirements of the U.S. Department of Energy, help with education of stakeholders, set up the IT systems for the model, create a regionally relevant report that includes information on things like Puget Sound energy incentives to help with energy efficiency upgrades or Energize Thurston incentives. This national service provider could also potentially set up a help desk for people to call with questions, and they could even run daily compliance monitoring and reporting on our behalf. This contract is expected to go before the Board of County Commissioners in early August. Work is also underway for stakeholder engagement on how the supporting program for home energy score could be built out, including important stakeholders like the Realtors Association of Thurston County. Some jurisdictions are well on their way of creating things like subsidy request forms and processes and workflows for internal processes that aren't necessarily regional standards, but will likely be very similar between the jurisdictions should this pass. My role in the collaborative is to lead the workforce development part with the company that the county contracts to ensure that we have an adequate number of home energy score assessors ready to get to work by the effective date. We're also working on communications plan, program implementation and monitoring plan, and the launch, at least for those jurisdictions that do adopt the ordinance, all by spring 2027. This is some beautiful opportunity to do this work regionally that many minds can work towards a common goal together, distribute the work, and keep the wheels turning towards progress. So with me doing that, I have learned that I should do shorter presentations. So now I have happy to take questions and show the recommended action should you choose to take it. And I'll stop speaking now unless asked a question. Thank you.
Did you have so much?
I should let you know that
That's why you're so long.
Just really interested.
Time, but
City code.
I like the way you explain stuff, so thank you.
So
for
if you don't get this done,
Thank you,
soon,
Councilmember.
You can talk as long as you'd like.
We have lots of things on the agenda though, so I wanted to be respectful of others as well.
Month or so that you have to replace the tree with.
I do not currently have any other questions. Joan, do you?
I don't. I think I've asked
So,
for, reread some stuff for today, and I think I'm still in the same place that I was.
Okay. Well, seeing as there's no further questions, I will take a motion.
You've got one. Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so that would be a
Like,
motion
Want me to read
to,
this?
yep,
Okay. I move that we place the ordinance number 2026004, adding a new chapter 1522 for the residential energy performance rating and disclosure to Tumwater Municipal Code Title 15, Buildings and Construction, on the July 21st, 2026 City Council considerations and recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign. Now, considerations, does this mean you,
there will be another presentation and the whole council will get to vote on it.
You do have a alternate pathway if you would like to motion that it move to consent. That is also an option. But it sounded like from the conversation at the work session that perhaps considerations was the most appropriate.
okay, I just
So
want,
it's just kind of the situation.
we were putting it on the big agenda.
Yep. Okay, so with there being a motion, we will open it up for a vote. So all those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Seeing as we have a full vote, that will be moved on to the next council meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all your work.
I think you'd be okay.
What is
Thank
it?
you.
What is it you're going to be in charge of, Alyssa?
In terms of the program development, I'll be the lead for the regional climate collaborative on workforce development. But my department, the Water Resources and Sustainability Department, is the one with the authority under this ordinance should it pass full council. So I'll have a role internally as Tumwater, but also regionally in the program.
Wow.
Yeah, but just so you know though, too.
Proud of you.
Especially when you start.
All right, with that being done, we're going to move on to agenda item number 5, I guess. Ordinance number 02026-016 with parking lighting. Brad is here and ready. Take it away.
All right. Let's see. Can everybody see the screen I'm sharing?
I can.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. This particular ordinance is an amendment to section 1850-060, off-street parking areas, design requirements, which is part of our off-street parking code in 1850. It is an amendment to address the height of parking lot lighting for large multi-building complexes or multiple tenant buildings adjacent to I-5. The ordinance would modify the requirements for parking lot lighting in those particular cases adjacent to I-5 to raise the allowable height for parking lot lights from 24 to 37 feet. The ordinance does not make any changes to the off-site illumination standards or other limits on site lighting that are found in 1840-035, exterior illumination, or the lighting guidelines in the design guidelines for commercial, mixed-use, or multifamily projects. A little bit of background on how the city has dealt with in the past site lighting requirements. In 1998, they added the requirement, or the requirement for site lighting at 24 feet was part of the code. Also, this section of code was part of the off-street parking off-street parking requirements. It also included some illumination standards in terms of the amount of light that could leave a site for a development and those kinds of things. In 2009, the city passed an ordinance called the Dark Sky Ordinance, which basically moved those requirements from the off-street parking requirements into a brand new section in 1840. The parking lot height requirements, however, was the only thing that stayed within the parking code. The proposed changes, again, would only affect one section of 1850, and the design requirements are found in line K for the parking lot lighting. Again, it would remove the section that talks about not exceeding 24 feet under the general requirements and add 2 subsections. The first one would be dealing with those particular projects that aren't adjacent to I-5, that aren't more than 150,000 square feet and meet the other requirements for being a multiple tenant or multiple building complex. And then the second item would be dealing with that very specific thing and would allow those standards to be up to 37 feet. The recommended action is, this is at a request that there be a briefing before the General Government Committee to discuss the Planning Commission's recommendation. Planning Commission had a public hearing last night at their meeting, discussed the proposed agenda, had some questions regarding the basis or whether or not, say, for example, a variance process would be something that be considered. We had answered that the variance process wouldn't be, because essentially, unless there was some very specific site related concerns, they wouldn't meet the threshold for what a variance could be approved. And then the recommendation from the Planning Commission after the hearing was a recommendation for approval. So the request is for the General Government Committee is to place the ordinance on the August 18 City Council consent calendar rather than consideration calendar, with a recommendation to adopt. In terms of the schedule, the ordinance has gone through the SEPA environmental review process. Determination appeal period ended July 2nd. It is currently going through the 60-day notice of intent process with Commerce. It is all right for us to go through this particular process, but the council can't adopt until the comment period ends on August 3rd, which is the reason why we put this to consent on recommendation to consent on the 18th. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them regarding the ordinance.
Brad, did you say that there was a specific situation in which this came about that we were trying to address, or is this just an overall?
Yeah, it's two parts. Number one, it is addressing a specific concern that had been raised by our development. It is also, by the change, something that would affect any development that would meet the conditions of this. So it's not just a site-specific code change.
Okay.
And that's why we're approaching it this way.
Okay. Joan, do you have any questions at all?
So it can't be completely passed until August? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. We have to finish the state notice of intent period before the council can take their final action.
So you just want us to say yay to this and then you'll hold it till then? That's
correct. And also because your August meeting was canceled, so we put it on this agenda to make sure that we're set up for August.
Okay. I'm fine with it. No issues.
Okay. Well, seeing as there's no further questions, I will take a motion to conduct a briefing to discuss the Planning Commission's recommendation on ordinance number 02026-016, parking lot lighting, and then place the ordinance on the August 18, 2026 City Council consent calendar with a recommendation to adopt.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. That one again passes. We will move on to the next one then. And Brad, that is you again. Agenda item number 6, the interlocal agreement with the Port of Olympia for the Bush Prairie Habitat Conservation Plan.
Right. So I'm sharing screen again. I'd like to point out that the total number of slides for all 3 presentations today is 13, which exceeds, I think, the maximum number we're allowed to present to council. If I can chop off the last one, we can do that. The purpose of the amendment number 4 to the interlocal agreement with the Port of Olympia, this is for the Bush Prairie Habitat Conservation Plan, is to, if you recall, we had a discussion at City Council a few months ago regarding a change in the service provider agreement. In order to complete the HCP, we made some changes to that. Those changes need to also be reflected in the interlocal agreement with the port, because the city and port are sharing the cost of that service provider agreement, essentially dividing it down the middle. And we needed to update the interlocal agreement to reflect that. So the cost would be both in 26 and 27. Give you a quick update on the status of the Habitat Conservation Plan. For more than a year, we've been working closely with the U.S. Fish staff, and we submitted a revised draft of the HCP for their review at the end of April. We expect them to be taking through August to finish their review. I had a good meeting last week with the person in charge of the regional office and the head staff for reviewing the HCP. They said the review is going well. We'll have a check-in next week to sort of lay out the general things that they are looking for additional information on. And at the end of August, we have a day and a half set aside for us, the port staff, our consultant, and the U.S. Fish staff to basically try to hammer out all the final details on that. So with the intent, if the service finds the HCP to be acceptable, we'll be able to start the NEPA and SEPA environmental review this year. That will in turn trigger a whole series of stakeholder and community involvement things, but I think we're getting close to getting to that point. So with that background, again, the interlocal agreement is being amended to share costs. So for budgetary reasons, the total amount of compensation that can be spent under the service agreement in 26 is limited to $200,000. And the port and the city would each provide half of that at $100,000. And then also for budgetary reasons, the total amount of compensation in 27 is limited to $245,000 approximately. And the city and the port would split the costs on that as well. And that's essentially it. So the recommendation is that this go under consideration at your meeting on the 21st for final approval. And if you have any questions about that or things related to the HCP, I can help address that.
I just want to know how many years we've talked about it.
Well, I have been with the cities as of July 11th, 10 years. And I think 10 years is plus has been the amount of time we've been talking about it.
Brad, did you say now that we want to move this to consideration and not consent?
I think it can go to consent unless you believe that the full council would like to have an update on that.
I don't know exactly what all is on that one. Paul, do you have any input on that, or should this just be going on to the consent as is?
I think it could probably move to consent.
Okay.
And we can double check that with the mayor at our mayor manager meeting and confirm.
Okay.
But I think this one's okay to go to consent because it's been a reoccurring issue and it's an ongoing project. If this were a one time or a new thing, I might have a different response. But given the history and the familiarity council has with this, I think consent's appropriate.
Yeah. Brad, I don't think I have any questions for you. I'm just excited that we're there, and I appreciate all your hard work in getting it to this point, and we can see the finish line. So congrats. Hopefully we can continue to move in the right direction on this one. So, Joan, no more questions from you?
No.
Okay. So with no more questions, I will take a motion to place Amendment 4 to the interlocal agreement with the Port of Olympia for the Bush Prairie Habitat Conservation Plan on the July 21st, 2026 City Council consent calendar with a recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign.
I second that.
Okay. Seeing as there's a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That one again passes. All right. Agenda item number 7, I guess. Additional feature items. I do not have anything. Joan?
No.
No? All right. Seeing as there's no more agenda items on here, I am going to adjourn this meeting.
Does the staff have any items they want us to be aware of?
I don't have anything.
Done here. Thank you for checking, Joe.
Perfect. Okay. So we will adjourn at 11:37. Thank you, everybody. Joan, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for all the hard work, staff.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
A lot of history here.
A lot.